Hello there and welcome back. In the previous episode, we completed our equipping system. So now we have this axe in our hand and we can walk around. We can also click to swing the axe and we're going to see this animation. And there's also this idle animation when we do nothing. Of course, this axe will appear on our hand only when we actually equip it and select one. In this episode, we're going to add an option to chop down trees. So we're going to take this axe that we created and we're going to add some functionality to it. So we're going to be able to approach these trees, hit them a few times, and then they're going to become logs, and we can pick up these logs and they will appear as resources inside our inventory. Later, of course, we can use them to craft different items. So before we start working on the actual option to chop down these trees, we want to create the prefab of these logs, right? Because when the tree will fall or disappear, we want to instantiate some kind of log models. So for that, we're going to create a new folder inside our assets, and we're going to call it materials. And inside these materials, we're going to create three different materials. So create material, and we're going to call it stump. Then we're going to create another material. We're going to call it outer trunk. Let's rename it outer trunk. And another one, inner trunk. Okay, so we're going to apply these materials on our log models because we're going to create these log models out of scratch. Okay, so if we go into our assets folder, I have some textures that I brought in. So inside the art birches part, I brought inside three different textures. The first one is the texture that we already had in our project. So this is the texture of these trees. So if you followed this series, I showed you that I'm using this fantasy environments asset pack, and it's a free pack. And inside we have these, let's see, materials, prefabs over here. Inside the environments textures, we have this birch bark tree texture, okay? So you can find it inside. So all I did was copy this texture and put it inside a separate folder. And then I cut out this brown part and made it into another file. And I also Googled for inner trunk or something like that, and it found this image, okay? So you can also find something similar. So I have these three different textures, okay? And of course, I also imported them and made them into a 2D texture. So now we're going to take these textures and we're going to use them on our materials. So inside the materials, the first one, the inner trunk, we're going to use the inner trunk texture. So we're going to click on this base map and we're going to search for inner trunk. Okay, and we're going to apply it to this material. Then we're going to click on the outer trunk, base map, outer, how did I call it? Trunk, bark. Yes, this one, birch bark. And the stump, we go base map, stump, okay? So only when we're going to apply them on our actual logs, we're going to be able to change the tiling a bit, okay? But for now, this is what we do. We simply created three materials and we apply these textures to them, okay? And if you really want me to, I can provide a link to this inner trunk texture, okay? But you can find it in Google, it's not a problem. And once again, I also want to remind you that We are just trying to create something that will look nice. We are not professionals. We are not creating some kind of quality 3D model, okay? So we're going to start by creating this cylinder. We go here into our landscape, or actually we can do it over here. 3D object, cylinder. And we can double click on it and see it inside our scene. Okay. And we're going to scale it to something like 1, 0.5, and 1. Okay. So this will be the stump. This will be the lower part of the tree. And we're going to rename it to stump. Then we're going to zoom in a bit. And inside we're going to create another cylinder. And we're going to call it inner part. Okay. So now the inner part, we're going to scale it to about 0.85, 0.85, and about 0.1, something like that. And the position is going to be 1.15. Okay. So basically we just want to bring it to the top, but we don't want it to stick out. So let's just bring it down a bit. Okay, so it will show at the top, but we don't want it to stick out. And now you're going to see what we're trying to do over here. We're going to take our material, this inner trunk, and we're going to apply it to our inner part. And then we're going to take the outer trunk, well actually the stump material, and we're going to apply it over here. Okay, so now we need to scale it a bit to be something like that. So maybe 0.98, 0.98, something like that. No, a bit less, 95. Okay, and that's the idea. Okay, so this will be the stump of the tree. Okay, so I created an extra cylinder, so we don't need this one. So we want the stump, okay, and then we want the inner part inside. And then we're going to create another cylinder, and we're going to call it log. Okay, and we're going to scale it to be a bit less than the stump, so something like 0.8, 0.8, and 1. Okay, so we want it to be a bit narrower than the stump itself. And we're going to do the same thing with the inner part. We're going to create another cylinder inside. We're going to call it inner part, and we're going to make it a bit smaller, or actually 0.75, 0.75, and about 0.5, 0.1, something like that. We're going to bring it to the top. Okay, so we can make it a bit 85, even more, 95. Okay, and we're going to place it down, and we're going to apply this material to it. And to the log itself, we're going to apply the outer trunk material. Okay, so it's not going to look good right now, but we're going to fix this. So we need to actually change the material itself. So we're going to click on our material, and we're going to play with the tiling. Okay, so we're going to move it a bit, and we can see that now it looks better. We can also make it fit. Okay, so again, it's not perfect, but so you can set it on 0.5. Okay, yes, 0.5 will be exactly the right value. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is also add a rigid body to the slug, because we're going to apply some kind of physics. So we're going to add a component, rigid body, okay? And actually, we also want to add another inner part. So we're going to copy this, paste inside. We're going to take this and drag it to the bottom of the log, okay? Because the log can be turned, okay? If it rolls on the ground, we're going to be able to see both sides. So let's just rotate the log a bit. And we're going to drag this part. Okay, make it stick a bit. Okay, and we're going to rotate the log back to its original position. Nice. So now we have this one log, we have a rigid body, we have these both inner parts, and we can also change the drag to be about 2 because we don't want it to roll too much. If we have some kind of hill, we don't want it to roll and just get away from us, right? We want it to be a bit heavy and just roll a little bit. So we basically want to have 2 logs for each tree, okay? So we're going to take this log and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to call it log as well. And we're going to move it over here. And we're going to take this log, this stump. Wait a minute, what happened to the material? Okay, so now we have this material, and this will be at the 0, 0 position. Just make sure that the stump is at the 0, 0 position, because we're going to make it into a prefab, okay? So let's click on the stump. Then we're going to click on both of these logs. We're going to put them at the 0, 0 position, and then we're going to move them up a bit. Oh, we have this thing over here. Going to fix that. And the second log is going to be on top of that. And we're going to give it a little bit of an offset, okay? Because when we instantiate this prefab, we want these logs to fall on the ground, okay? So we're going to move it a bit to the side, and we're going to move this to the side as well, okay? We can fix it later if it's not going to work. But this is the way we want it to be, okay? So it's going to be at the 0 position, and both of these will be on top of the stump. The important part is that the stump is at the 0 position. Then we're going to create an empty object, and we're going to call it chopped tree, okay? And we're going to select all of these things, and we're going to drag them inside the chopped tree. Okay, and the chopped tree, we can also position it at 0, 0. And now let's fix this thing. So let's go to the outer trunk and play a bit with the tiling. Why do we see it? Ah, okay, I think it's just, we're going to go to this inner part and we're going to make it a bit smaller. 92. 92. Okay, I think that's fine. And also this one, 92 and 92. Okay, so this is the way this prefab is going to look. So now we're going to select this entire chopped tree and we're going to place it inside our resources folder. Okay, although it's going to be a prefab, we want later to instantiate this item, so we're going to do it from our resources folder. So we're going to go into the resource folder and we're going to drag this chopped tree inside, and it's going to become a prefab, okay? So for now, we can delete it from our scene. Next, we want to start taking care of these trees, okay? Because we're going to interact with these trees and we want to be able to hit them, and we want to be able to animate them, and we also want to be able to reduce the health of these trees. So when the health reaches 0, it will destroy the tree and this chopped tree will appear. Okay? So to interact with this tree, we need some kind of script. Okay? So the script will take care of all of these things. So we go inside our scripts folder, and we're going to create a script that is called choppable tree. Okay, so we're going to open it, and inside we're going to start writing the code. So first of all, we're going to add two properties: public bool player in range, because we want to check if the player is close to the tree, and public bool can be chopped. So this will be a boolean that will keep track of if we can actually chop our tree. Okay, so maybe if our middle point is on the tree itself. Then we're going to create these on trigger enter and on trigger exit, and we already created it in the past. Let's see, I think it was somewhere, it was inside the interactable objects, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so when we were close to the stick, it changed the player in range to true, and when we went away, then it was changed to player false. Okay, so it's something that we already created once. So let's copy this and go back into the choppable tree and paste it over here. So we're going to leave it the same way because we're going to have the same property over here. So when we get close to the tree, it will recognize that we're colliding with it. So it's going to make player in range true. And when we leave the area, okay, then it's going to make player in range false. Another thing that we want to add is this required component, because we want to make sure that there is a box collider on this game object, okay? Because we need a box collider to make this work. So we can also make sure that it's going to create a box collider even if we forget about it. Require component, type of box collider. Okay, and once this, yes, okay. So now we're going to save this and come back over here, and now we're going to click on one of these trees. Okay, so we only need to make a change in one tree and then we can apply it to all of them. So inside we're going to create an empty game object, and we're going to call it tree base. Okay, so this will be some kind of base object inside the tree, and we're going to attach this choppable script to this base tree. Okay, so we're going to click on this base tree and we're going to drag the choppable script over here. Then we're also going to add an extra box collider. Okay, and you can see that we already have a box collider because we specified in the script that we require a box collider. So it automatically created this box collider. But we need another box collider to make it a trigger box collider. Okay, the same way we have these stones, we have a box collider that specifies the area of this object so we can actually know when we can pick up this item. And there's another box collider that simply specifies the zone in which it detects the player, if we're inside the range or outside the range. So we're going to do the same thing with these trees. So the first box collider, the one that is triggered, will be something like, let's say 4, 12, and 4. Okay, so this will be, we can play with it later, but this will be the zone. Okay, if we go inside the zone, it will detect that we're inside the range. And the second box collider, it's already around our tree, but we also want to make it about 13, okay? We want to cover this entire tree. So 13, okay? You can see it over here. And when we made all of these changes, we can go to our birch tree and simply click overrides, apply all, and it will create this tree base inside all of the other prefabs, okay? Now, another thing that we want to do is go inside our selection manager, and we're going to create two more properties inside. So the first one will be public game object selected tree and public image chop holder. Okay, and then we're going to go over here. You remember we had this interactable object, so when we select a stone or a stick, it makes the selected object to be the selected object. It shows the name of the object, and it also shows us the hand icon, and the center dot is disappeared, okay? So we do all of this over here. So we also want to do the same thing, but with the tree. So we're going to go between these two lines, and we're going to add some code. First of all, we're going to create this choppable tree script, choppable tree, and we're going to do the same thing, selection transform. So when we select the item, in our case it will be the tree, then we're going to search for a choppable tree script. And if it finds a choppable script inside this object, then it's going to save it over here, okay? And then we're going to create an if statement and an else statement, okay? And inside this if statement, if choppable tree, this one, exists, right? If it's not null, so if we pointed at a tree, it found this choppable tree, and it placed it inside. So if it's not null, if we're actually pointing at some kind of tree, and the choppable tree player is in range, okay? So if both of these things are true, if the player is actually near the tree and we're actually pointing at the tree, then we're going to be able to hit it. So choppable tree can be chopped will be true. Selected tree will be the choppable tree game object. And the chop holder game object is going to be true. And this will be some kind of UI, okay? This UI will simply show us the name of the tree and the health bar of the tree, okay? But we're going to create it later. True. So if we point at the tree and we're also in range, it's going to become can be chopped. So we can use this boolean to do all kinds of things. And we're also going to store this tree inside this game object, right? The game object that we created over here. And if all of this is not true, then if the selected tree is not null, selected tree game object get component choppable tree can be chopped becomes false, selected tree becomes null, and chop holder game object set active will be false, okay? So when we no longer select or point at a tree, and when we get out of the range, it will simply deselect this tree, okay? So now we're going to create this chop holder, okay? So let's save this. Let's go back into the editor. And inside our canvas, we're going to create a new object, and we're going to call it chop holder. So we can double click on it, and we're going to make it about 60 and 60. The scale will be about 0.5, 0.5, and 1. And the first thing we want to do is to create a text inside. So we're going to create a UI text inside. And we're going to name it tree because this will be a tree, okay? We're going to make it bold. We're going to change it to our font. Font size will be about 19. We're going to center it. And we're going to change the color to be white. And we can also add an outline. Okay. And maybe we can also scale it to be about 2. Okay, something like that. Next, we want to create the health bar of this tree. So we're going to go and use these health bars that we already have. So we're going to copy this health bar, copy, and we're going to paste it inside the chop holder. And just make sure that it's actually inside the chop holder. And we're going to rename it to resource health bar, okay? So now we're going to select this resource health bar, and we're also going to position it at 0, 0. The width will be about 100, and the height will be about 10, okay? And we can lower it somewhere over here, something like that. And we can also remove this health bar script. And we can also change the color, so we go inside this fill, and we change it to something like green, okay? We need to remove this thing. None. Okay. And also we are going to go to the selection manager, and we're going to drop this reference to the chop holder, okay? Selected tree, image. Well, it's actually not an image. Let's rename it. I don't know why I made it into an image. It should also be a game object, okay? So now let's take the chop holder and drag it inside this reference, okay? So now if we run the game, well, actually, let's first hide the chop holder. So now when we approach this tree, we can see this health bar, and it says that it's a tree, okay? So the same way we point at these stones, now it shows that it's a tree, okay? And I think that we can also put it a bit over here. Okay, just a little bit of positioning. Now we want to make this health bar actually deplete when we hit the tree, okay? So inside the choppable tree script, let's go over here. We're going to add a few more properties. So we're going to have a public float. It's going to be the tree max health and the tree health, okay? So we can also go over here click on one of these base trees, and we're going to set the initial max health to be about 10, okay? So we can also apply it to all the other prefabs, and we can go back into the script. So now we need to create a start method, okay? So void start, and over here we simply say that when we start the game, the tree health will be equals to the tree max health, okay? And we're also going to create a method over here, public void get hit, okay? So this method will be triggered when we actually hit the tree. And when we hit the tree, we want to take out some health. So tree health minus equals 1. We can play with the values. We can make the health 100 and then take 10 points. We can play with it, but it's the same like 10 health points and then we take out 1, okay? So you can fine tune it the way you want it to be. Now to actually trigger this get hit method, we're going to go inside our equipable item script. And over here, when we actually swing our axe, before this animation, we're going to create a reference to this game object that is the selected tree, okay? And we're going to get it from the selection manager. Instance selected tree, okay? And then we check if when we actually click on the left mouse button, if the selected tree is not null, it means that it actually exists. It means that we actually point on some kind of tree. Then the selected tree get component choppable tree is going to get hit, okay? So when we select some kind of tree and we click on it, then it's going to swing the axe and it's going to trigger this get hit method, okay? And it's also going to trigger this animation. So now to be able to change and lower this health bar, we need to be able to control the slider, right? So we're going to create a script that will go on this health bar, resource health bar, instead of the health bar script that we had. So we're going to create another script and we're going to call it resource health bar. Okay, and we're going to drag it on this resource health bar. Resource health bar, let's place it over here, and we're going to open it. Now inside, we're going to have a reference to a slider. Well, not this kind of slider, so we need to use UI and private float that will store the current health and the max health. And we also want to create a game object that will store the global state, and it will be a reference to some kind of new singleton that we're going to create. And we also want this awake that will simply get the slider component. So it's going to get the slider component because the script sits on this object and this object has the slider component. So now we want to create this global state, okay? And this global state will be something similar to our player state system that keeps different states of our player. But the global state will simply track all kinds of states that are not only related to the player, okay? And we want to do it because we want to keep track of the health of the different trees, right? So we don't want to place it inside the player state, so we are going to create a global state singleton. So we're going to go over here and create an empty game object, and we're going to call it global state. And we're also going to create a script called global state. And we're going to drop the script on this object, okay? So now we're going to open the script, and inside we're going to do the usual thing to make it into a singleton. So let's just take this, and also inside the awake, we need to copy this entire awake. Okay, so now we made it into a singleton. So we're going to be able to reference it from our entire project. So now we're going to create a few properties over here. We're going to have public float resource health and public float resource max health. And inside our resource health bar, we're going to create an update method. And we're going to do something similar to what we have inside our health bar, okay? So we can actually copy all of this, paste it here. So current health will be equals to global state, right? We want to reference the global state. And this time we want to get a global state. And inside we have the resource health. And we have the resource max health, okay? So again, we do what we did with the health bar. We get the current health and the max health from the global state, and we simply change the slider to be the value of these healths, okay? So now inside, let's save this, and inside the choppable tree, we're going to create an update method as well, void update. And here, if can be chopped, so if this specific tree can be chopped, then we're going to go to the global state, resource health, and we're going to set it to be the tree health, okay? Because the global state simply holds some kind of resource health. It doesn't know which tree has this health, right? It can be any tree. But when we actually select some kind of tree, then it's going to set the health of the tree to become this resource health. And then we're going to do the same thing, resource max health with the tree max health, okay? So it's going to always get updated when we select some kind of tree. So let's save this. Let's see that everything is saved. And let's go back here. Let's hide this chop holder and let's run the game. So if we go and approach this tree, we can see this tree and it also has the health. And then when we click, it should work. So let's see what's wrong. The variable. Oh yes, we forgot to place this global state over here. So we're going to take the global state and we're going to drag it over here. And of course, the resource health bar, we don't really need the text because we don't want to show the amount of hit points we have on this tree. Okay, it's not relevant in this case, okay? So now let's run. And when we approach this tree, it will show this health bar. And then when we left click, it's going to deplete the health bar. But if you're noticing, when we click on the hit, there's some kind of delay because the health bar goes down when we click on the mouse and not when the axe is actually hitting the tree, right? So to fix that, we go back into our choppable tree, and when we want to decrease the health of the tree, we're actually going to cut it and we're going to create a coroutine, okay? Because we can run the coroutine with some kind of delay, and then we're simply going to create a delay between the animation triggering and the health going down, okay? So start coroutine, and we're going to start a coroutine called hit. Let's just make it a lowercase, okay, hit. And we're going to create this coroutine over here, public I enumerator hit, and inside we're going to do this code, but only after yield return new wait 4 seconds. And I played with the times and I found that 0.6 is the exact time, okay? So if your animation is going to be longer or shorter, you may want to play with it and see how it works. So now when we go to this tree, it's going to actually make the health bar go down when the axe is actually hitting the tree. Okay, because we created this coroutine. So up until now, we created the option to actually hit the tree and the health will go down. And if we apply it to all the other trees, well, it's applied. So notice that if we run the game and we approach this tree, so only when we're inside this area, it will show it. When we go back, it will disappear and we won't be able to hit the tree. Only when we're inside this area, we're going to be able to hit the tree and the health will go down. And now let's just hit it a bit more. If we go to another tree, this tree will have a full health. So let's hit it a few times. And then when we come back to this tree, it will still be at half point, right? Because it's going to stay. And over here, it's going to be a little bit, and this tree is going to be entirely full. I think this is enough for this episode. I don't want to make it a long episode, and there's a few more things that we still need to do. Of course, we need to make the tree disappear. We need to make this resource prefab, this one, appear instead of the tree. We need to add some animations to the tree, right? When we hit the tree, we want it to shake a little bit. And we also want it to maybe fall, or if not to fall, we just want to destroy it and then make this chopped tree appear. And then we also want to be able to pick up these separate logs. So we need to create a new resource. Okay, so all of this will happen in the next episode. So that's all for this episode. Please subscribe if you're still not subscribed. It will help me a lot. It will show your support. Please leave a like, and I'll see you next time.